So betting is a way of life and a part of the football landscape now. It's more mainstream than ever before, and most states, not named Texas, because the state of Texas, as you should know, is ruled by nanny state voters and nanny state sellout politicians. So we don't have necessarily legalized gambling in the state of Texas, but most normal non-nanny state places do, and football and betting is just a way of life. There's not even much pushback anymore outside of the state of Texas. I don't even think, and you can do it if you want, I'm happy to have the argument, I don't really even hear people anymore claim or argue or wonder if games are being thrown because of bets. It doesn't come up. And I think everyone accepts the reasons why. Everyone realizes that having legalized gambling above board poses very little risk at all. I'm going to qualify this, though, to the NFL. Players are making too much money. There's no reason to risk a career on a $10, $15, $20, or even $100,000 payoff. It's just not, it's not worth it. Now, the players may bet because it's fun and it's interesting to them, but you know, the idea that they're going to throw a game, I don't think any of you even argue that stuff anymore for the NFL. That's the clarification. I think, feel free to disagree, I think college football is a completely different story, and I think the elephant in the room is gambling. And I don't know if you think you have the answer or just don't believe it, but I really do think it's the elephant in the room, and I think it's just a matter of time. I think there's a real risk to games being manipulated. I don't even want to use the term thrown, but being manipulated in some way. And I would argue the reason is this. The industry is conveniently, I think the college football industry that has a lot of problems, and I think this one is going to be a giant problem if it hasn't already. But I think that industry is conveniently ignorant that $5,000, $10,000 or more, or even less, to a college kid that's not at a football factory. Again, people are sort of trapped into being prisoner of the moment and thinking everyone is like the money machine that's Texas. It's not that way at all. It's not. Most of them are not. And $5,000 to $10,000, even to a college football in a time in which some sugar daddy can hand the money, still matters a lot. And I think that sport is conveniently and intentionally ignorant to the issue. Think of it. College players, those that go to college, I'm not even sure if anyone goes to college anymore that plays football, but maybe they do. College players are surrounded by gambling, and gamblers have access to them. It's their buddies. Drink beer, hang out at the frat house, whatever. I mean, it's a giant problem on college campuses, period. It's a young man's problem, no doubt. So they're surrounded by bettors that have access to them. And I think it's a matter of if points are shaved, a game is thrown, you know, whatever variable you would apply to it. I think it's a matter of, not a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. I think it's going to happen if it hasn't happened already. The sport has no rules. The sport doesn't really have any governance. The sport doesn't really have any sort of direction. It has no guardrails. I don't even hear them addressing this issue. And it's staring them right in the face. It is the elephant in the room. I'm not even sure the industry has and enforces any sort of meaningful policy about betting. Because I think there can only be one policy when it comes to college sports, college football. So, I mean, any one of you, pick a school, pick some mid-level school, and you're the average, fourth wide receiver. $10,000 is a lot, and it's easy, and it's all around you. And I think it's going to happen. I don't know how bad it is. I don't know how ugly it is. I don't know how obvious it is, but I think it's pretty clear. I think it's going to happen. So now players, the reason why I bring this up is a story that's out now based on some research. Now players are saying, college players, college athletes, female athletes in particular, which isn't that surprising given all the knuckleheads that are out there, but players are saying they're being harassed. Do you believe them? You know who's harassing them? That's the big question. You know who's harassing them? Yeah. Frat guys, meatheads are harassing female athletes in a sexual way. But it's different when it comes to football and basketball. Do you believe them? And what is the solution? There. What is the solution? So follow this. ESPN has a story out today. David Purdom has been on the show a bunch of times. He writes about betting and gambling issues for ESPN and does a really good job. I don't think the sport even wants to acknowledge this stuff. The few times that it's come up, hell, one of them is one of the schools in Iowa, they let one of the guys play again. And he bet the under on his own team, and he got to play again. So David Purdom writes for ESPN, study angry bettors behind growing abuse of NCAA athletes. Abuse by angry sports bettors is one of the most common types of harassment college athletes receive, making up at least 12% of publicly posted social media abuse, according to a new analysis conducted. Social media accounts of more than 3,000 college athletes, approximately 500 coaches, 200 event officials, and 165 teams during the 2024 college football playoff, men's and women's basketball tournaments, and men's and women's college World Series. Okay? Again, you can say, well, that's just harassment, Jeff. Do you believe that? What do you want to do about that? And you know what they're harassing them about? Absolutely. They're harassing them about bets. And the question would be, of course, and I think it goes deeper than this, but the obvious point would be some 19-year-old who does consume social media. You can't, look, this idea that the Jeff Ward mantra to everything is just ignore everyone is not the way a 19 to 22-year-old lives. It's not the way 40-year-olds live. The public pays attention to every critic, to every online fight. Gets involved in all of it. What happens when you're getting overwhelmed with bettors saying, you jackass, you better do this? I mean, they have access. And they're players, a young person today is inviting the access. Now what? What can you do? Like, what should be the policy? Because there is none that we can tell. All right, the study defined angry sports bettors in quotations as individuals who engage in problematic and intrusive communications due to match events and results contradicting bettors' predictions. In other words, it didn't go their way and they're pissed. I think the bigger issue is it didn't go their way, they're pissed, and they harass you and they scare you or they influence you, and they're saying next time. That's the risk, and I think it's real. Athletes received abusive messages before, after, and during events. What are you doing responding right in the middle of a game? Are you kidding? The survey listed sexual abuse, racism, and homophobia as among other common harassment categories. They flagged 743 abusive or threatening messages referencing betting or match fixing. With 73% of them occurring during March Madness, the most popular event with American bettors. Female athletes received approximately 59% more abusive messages than men. Well, you know what those knuckleheads are doing and saying. The other issue is the one that none of it's good. None of it. But the other one is where I think this thing is going to end up, and that is once somebody digs, once some reporters do the good work, once somebody uncovers it, I think everyone's going to be faced with a scandal. And I actually think the industry is just going to try to blow it off. I really do. So what should happen? What policy should be in place? Can there be a policy in place? Is it even practical? I think it is. I mean, I do. I'm amazed. It's like college, particularly college football, basketball too, though. It's like you're just sitting around, just sitting there, waiting for a giant scandal to come. You're not trying to get in front of anything. There's no guardrails at all. And I think the betting scandal is coming. I don't know what the other ones would be. I mean, you can make an argument that social media pressure and social media hate could even be enough to influence somebody by itself. You know, a threat. Hey, I know where your mom sits for your games. You'd better make sure you miss that third field goal or else. Stuff like that. but even more importantly, having access to them to bribe them. So the sports, each conference in each school, I think it better get in front of this. And I don't think they want to. I don't think they know how to. And I don't think they really deep down want to, because nobody in that sport wants any rules except, the big players don't want any rules. But they'd better get in front of it. And I think it has to be zero tolerance. I do. You bet, and it's uncovered, you're done. I don't know any other way you go to address it. The idea that this backup, I think it was a backup quarterback at one of the schools in Iowa, and these are Division I schools, he bet the under. So in other words, that's really dangerous. In other words, I missed that field goal to make sure we win by 3 or whatever. That, and I think he got to play again. Think how crazy that is. They have to make it public. They have to make it known. They have to. I mean, I can't even believe the NFL, for all of its fake feelings and fake hypersensitivity, you have to say this, does do a decent job of getting in front of a story, making you feel better about it, or distracting you and saying, hey, pay attention to all the fun stuff about football. Oh, enjoy it over here. Don't worry about concussions. Look over here. College football does none of that. There is no attempt to say, we got this gambling thing fixed. We got this gambling thing taken care of. We have policies in place, and we want to let everybody know. They don't even do that. None of it. When was the last time you heard a major conference or even a school, which I think is a mistake by the schools, even address it or go public with it? I think it has to be zero tolerance. You bet you're done. I mean, they're going to get sued. They're getting sued all the time anyway. Why not have a rule? I think the sport is crazy. Crazy. You can have, you can let all the sugar daddies give them all the cars they want. You don't get in front of this. Your game is no better than wrestling. If people start to wonder if games are fixed, if guys are throwing and shaving points, you're no better than wrestling. None. There's no structure and no rules. What could they do? What do you think? You think it's a problem? You think you agree with me, it eventually happens? And if you do, what exactly do you think they could do about it to stop it on the front end? Or what form do you think it takes when somebody finally shaves points?